It's unfair what happened. It's unfair to us, Canadians especially.
As Canada's role investigating the crash of Flight 752 takes shape, a Toronto CEO kicks off a campaign to help those left behind. Vigils to mourn those who died in last week's crash continue across the GTA, but now officials in Ottawa say Iran is allowing Canadians to participate in the investigation of the downed Ukrainian plane. But our country's exact role remains unclear.
This is not going to be a short investigation, regardless of who leads it. Regardless of our role, this is going to take time to answer all the questions. We know we have expertise that we can bring to this investigation along with our international partners that can help get the answers that the families deserve and that the public wants as well.
Iranian aviation authorities are leading the investigation as per international convention, but Ottawa is pushing for full access as it seeks answers for the loss of Canadian lives last Wednesday. Iran's military admitted to shooting down Flight 752, killing all 176 on board, including 57 Canadians. The head of Canada's Transportation Safety Board has confirmed that the recovered black boxes were damaged and are still in Iran, adding Canada will have access to them. One team of specialists is expected to reach Tehran today. Two other experts from the TSB specialized in working with flight recorders plan to join the investigation later. For many, the focus tonight remains on grieving. Here in the GTA, vigils continue this week, but there's also an effort to financially help the families left behind. Alicia Son with the well-known Toronto restaurant chain owner who is stepping up.
5 days on, and the aftermath of the Ukrainian Airlines crash on a global level is a pursuit of justice intertwined with politics. On the local level, it's more about what we can do to help the families of 57 Canadian victims.
It's very sad that we got caught between other countries' issue, and we pay that price.
So, Mohamed Faki, philanthropist and founder of Paramount Fine Foods, has kick-started the Canada Strong Fund.
A national campaign to raise, hopefully, $1.5 million for the family of the victims and all Canadian victims from all across the country, not only Toronto, not only Ontario. I know that this community, the Iranian community, and a lot of communities are sometimes very proud to accept, especially financial help. But you're not accepting any help from strangers. We are one family, one big family, a Canadian family.
Like the Toronto Strong Fund, which was launched to support the families of the Yonge Street van attack victims, 100% of the proceeds raised through the Canada Strong Fund will go to those affected by this tragedy, people who are now thinking about funeral arrangements and settling estates.
As we've seen again in previous tragedies, people, families are put to expenses they just couldn't have anticipated.
And so it is being asked that in the same spirit of the compassion shown at the many vigils held for the plane crash victims, that people or corporate donors look into their pockets as well as their hearts.
This is the Canadian thing to do.
Alicia Son, CBC News, Toronto.
And there is a vigil for victims of the crash in Richmond Hill tonight. It will remember students from York Region who died. We'll take you there as it gets underway. That's happening at about 6:30.
A false alarm about this nuclear plant in Pickering had some residents wondering how safe are we and what exactly to do in the case of a real emergency. I'll have that story coming right up.
There are now 3 teachers' unions planning one-day strikes to protest stall contract negotiations with the province. Ontario's Catholic teachers announcing they will shut down all Catholic schools across the province for one day next week. Mike Wise is following this story for us and has the details. Mike.
Well, Dwight, if your kids go to Catholic school, time to start looking for daycare options next week. This involves 45,000 members of OECTA, which represents English Catholic teachers, both elementary and secondary. This would be the largest job action we've seen yet. Its members will walk off the job for one day next Tuesday. That's January 21st. The union's president says the mediator actually called off 2 days of negotiations last week after just 2 hours, saying the two sides were just too far apart. Now, the union is accusing the government of being an impediment at the bargaining table.
Our approach throughout the process has been marked by disorganisation and disrespect. At this point, their negotiating team has no authority to bargain an agreement, and this leaves teachers with nowhere else to go but the picket line.
And she's accusing the province of insisting the unions accept what it described as permanent cuts, of not tabling any new proposals, and not wanting to talk about larger issues like protecting all-day kindergarten. Now, this strike comes as another union, the Secondary School Teachers Union, holds another one-day strike this Wednesday. That'll affect high schools in Durham Region and Hamilton. Then there are Ontario's public elementary school teachers. They are seeing extracurriculars canceled this week, and next week, teachers will start their own rotating one-day strikes. Now, as for when they could hit your local school, the union says, stay tuned.
We'll inform the public this coming Wednesday as to the details of what those rotating strikes will look like.
Now, those three unions all pointing the finger at the government. This morning, the education minister pointed it right back at them, saying they are joining forces to fight efforts to cap salaries in the courts. He's particularly critical of the secondary school teachers union, saying it hasn't brought anything substantial to negotiations, and he says he'd rather see unions bargaining than withdrawing services and hurting kids.
Further escalation is not going to help get a deal. It's going to frustrate the process, and I don't think that'd be particularly constructive.
Now, at this point, Dwight, there are no talks scheduled with any of these unions.
We have to stay tuned. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Of course, we have the very latest on where each of the major unions are at when it comes to job action. Find out what you need to know at cbc.ca/Toronto. Amid a royal rift, the Queen says she's allowing Prince Harry and wife Meghan to split their time between the UK and Canada. We'll have the very latest on the move and the family meeting held today to settle tensions coming up in just a few minutes. The province is getting more questions today on how the false emergency alert about the Pickering nuclear plant could have happened.
I don't want to impose a timeline that ends up being so tight that he doesn't get all the information we need. It's very important for me, for the people of Ontario, to know exactly what happened on Sunday morning. Having said that, I do not anticipate that this is going to be a long, drawn-out investigation. I want to know what happened, and equally important, I want some recommendations on insurances and changes that we can make to the system to make sure it doesn't happen again.
The emergency cell phone alert jolted people awake yesterday morning just before 7:30. It said it was for people within 10 kilometers of the Pickering nuclear plant, but people across the province received it. More than an hour and a half later, another alert explaining that it had been an error. But what would happen if the alert wasn't an error? Lisa Shing went to find out.
That false alarm, a scary wake-up call for people across the province. The emergency alert about the Pickering nuclear plant was a mistake, but it got a lot of people thinking, how safe are we?
The systems are very safe, and the plants are designed to actually prevent anything, on the unlikely event of a major event, they're designed to keep everything inside the plant. So the plant actually calls for people to stay and wait.
Not only that, a government agency called the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission has a team of inspectors in every facility, including here in Pickering, doing daily safety checks.
Part of our processes as well as the nuclear regulators to require that the licensees, the operators of these plants, review these measures on a periodic basis.
If there is an emergency, officials say to stay in your home and wait for instructions because every situation is different. For example, what you do could depend on shifts in the wind. Now, all of this is determined by the Ontario Power Generation that manages the plants in conjunction with all levels of government.
It may be safer to remain in place because there may not be a radiological release, or it may be a very small release. In the unlikely event that there's a larger accident that may lead to a larger release, the province may take a decision that it's safer for people to evacuate and to move out of an area where a radioactive plume could come through.
If you live within 3 kilometers of the plant, like here in Pickering, you will hear air sirens if there is an emergency. If you live within 10 kilometers, you'll get an automated call to your landline. The province is responsible for the push alerts you got over the weekend. Every house, resident, and business within 10 kilometers of all nuclear plants in Ontario are given potassium iodide for free. In case of radiation poisoning, the pills can prevent thyroid cancer. If you're within 50 kilometers of a nuclear plant, you can order it online for free. The biggest takeaway, if a real emergency were to have occurred, an alert would just be the first step. You would be getting other instructions and information too. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Pickering.
It looks like Prince Harry and his wife Meghan will indeed be living in Canada part-time. That was part of an announcement from the Queen today after senior royals met at Sandringham Estate, but little else is known about the couple's future. Renee Filipponi explains.
That fairy tale day, just 20 months ago, when the world tuned in for Harry and Meghan's wedding, now seems like a distant memory. Today, the media focused on the Queen's Sandringham Estate as she summoned Princes Charles, William, and Harry to discuss the couple's now uncertain future as royals. Following the meeting, she issued a statement calling the talks very constructive, saying the royal family is entirely supportive of Harry and Meghan's desire to create a new life as a young family, though they would have preferred them to remain full-time working members.
The Queen is so determined to try and find some kind of compromise that keeps Harry within the fold, because if Harry was to turn his back on royal duties entirely, I think that would be devastating for the Queen, for the family.
But there are crucial details to work out. What will their role be? Can they keep their Royal Highness's title? And how will they support themselves financially?
There are going to be so many lucrative offers for them going forwards. The most toxic thing for the royal family is being seen to cash in on your royal status.
It's been 5 days since the Duke and Duchess of Sussex made the announcement, and the story continues to dominate the headlines. Princes Harry and William are raising concerns about how the media is covering it.
A media report today suggested William bullied the couple out of the family. The brothers deny it, and in a rare joint statement called the report offensive and potentially harmful.
I absolutely hate the fact that this is being called Megxit.
This UK journalist says Meghan seems to be taking the fall, and she isn't surprised.
Meghan has been vilified by the press for months and months and months now. There's been coverage against her that's been, sexist, racist, all sorts of things, and I just don't find it shocking that her and Harry have finally decided this is it.
From the decision to leave to how the couple went about it, people are looking for someone to blame, as the couple's decision to seek privacy has only pushed them further into the spotlight. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Questions remain, though, over who will pay for security for Meghan and Harry when they are in Canada. The British Evening Standard tabloid reports that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has agreed that Canada should cover the cost, but Finance Minister Bill Morneau was asked about that at an event today and suggested the paper is wrong.
We obviously are always looking to make sure that as a member of the Commonwealth that we play a role. We have not had any discussions on that subject at this time.
The Evening Standard says round-the-clock security for the couple would cost taxpayers about $500,000 a year. Oh, if that looks painful, it was and still is. That's your friendly neighborhood news host falling down icy stairs Sunday morning. That scene playing out across the GTA as many of us slipped after Saturday's rain turned into Sunday's ice. My arm broke the fall. I don't think the arm is broken, but the shoulder is sure. One more time in slow-mo just for fun. Ouch. It could have been a lot worse, Colin, and I'm sure there were emerge visits right across the GTA because of that ice on Sunday. Sheets of it.
It pains me to see that. In time, we might laugh about it, but it pains me to see that because I know that hurt, Dwight. And, we talked about it Friday. Hey, everyone, look out for each other. Take it easy. But sometimes we don't take care of ourselves. So, yeah, that happened, I think, in many spots because it eventually did freeze. However, it was a lot of rain that came before that. And we also looked at this on Friday, that an average monthly rainfall for all of January is around 25 millimeters. We said we were looking at more than twice that. The record for one day, 58.7. Well, this was a two-day event because it ran into Sunday, right? But this is what we ended up with, 64 millimeters. This is just of the rain. I know there were areas that saw some extended periods of some of the ice accretion, Orangeville, Pembroke, even towards the nation's capital, and then snow on top of that. But it was a significant event. Now we get to take a little bit of a breather. 2 degrees. The temperature's actually running a little bit above seasonal, even though there's just a tiny bit of a wind chill. Not a lot happening, but we will see some patchy fog developing tonight. We do have a couple of weak systems that are going to push through this week. So a little patchy fog, maybe a few flurries, and then towards tomorrow afternoon, a little bit of a light mix is possible as well, but the temperature's still running above seasonal. So that -2 tonight, 3 degrees tomorrow afternoon. I say a couple of weak systems, but at the end of the week, there's one coming, Dwight, that's not looking weak. I got to tell you all about that one coming up.
Oh, there's more? All right.
There's more. Rest that shoulder, my
Yes.
friend.
Thanks, Colette. Police are asking for your help in locating a missing woman who was last seen 2 days ago.
Check your backyards, check your garages, your sheds. It's completely out of character for her that she has not reported home or that she's been missing this long, which raises our concern for her safety. So the sooner that we can locate her whereabouts, the better.
28-year-old Hiral Patel was last seen Saturday night around 11:30 p.m. in the area of Islington and Steele. She was wearing a black jacket, gray pants, and was carrying a black and white knapsack. A command post has been set up for her near Finch and Steeles. Police are concerned for her safety and are asking anyone with information to come forward. A man is dead after a crash involving an alleged stolen tractor-trailer in Mississauga. Now, Peel police are investigating the series of events that led to the truck flipping on its side, damaging property and power lines, and taking out other vehicles. Linda Ward has more.
You can see the wreckage and debris here behind me. This tractor trailer rolling over, smashing into this Esso sign. Police say that tractor trailer was eastbound here on Eglinton Avenue West at Mavis around midnight when it smashed into a southbound sedan, sending that vehicle crashing into an SUV. Then that tractor trailer lost control, rolled over and careened into this gas station sign. The attendant at the gas station across the road saw the whole thing unfold.
It sounded like a blast and like so much noise. I can hear that sound from inside the store. He ran out with red lights and hit 2 cars and then hit electric pole and flip over and has hit the Esso gas station.
The driver was heavily trapped and died here on scene. Police believe he stole this tractor trailer from a location in Mississauga and was traveling at a high rate of speed. The other 2 drivers were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and police say despite those injuries and this loss of life, this could have been so much worse.
It's absolutely a significant amount of damage. Thankfully, the tractor trailer only hit the gas station sign and not any of the pumps, causing any sort of fire or explosion.
The cleanup here is extensive, picking up the pieces of debris all over the scene, as well as repairing power lines, cleaning up a significant fuel spill, and of course, towing this wreck from the scene as forensics teams try to map out this trail of destruction. They're asking anyone who might have been in the area, who might have dash cam footage from last night, to hand that over to police to help them put together the pieces of what happened here. Linda Ward, CBC News, Mississauga.
A fire that's believed to have started in a bedroom of an Oakville home has left 2 people dead.
When the crews entered the second floor, they had heavy heat, heavy smoke. When they went in, visibility was 0. So they had a difficult time working the way around on the second floor. But as soon as they entered in that one bedroom, they located both victims.
Crews were called to the home in the Spears and Kerr Street area around 8:30 last night. A man and a woman were both unconscious when firefighters removed them from the home. The man died a short time later. The woman died in hospital earlier today. The Ontario Fire Marshal is now investigating. And the woman is dead after an overnight fire at a Scarborough high-rise. Firefighters were called to the building in the Birchmount and Shepherd area around 3 this morning. The fire in the 18th floor unit was quickly put out, but crews found a woman without vital signs inside. She died in hospital several hours later. Since it's not clear how the fire began, police are treating the woman's death as suspicious. The fire marshal is also investigating this one. After the break, a joker is dealt the best hand at this year's Oscars. 11 nominations for the film, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor. More on who is up for an Academy Award coming up next. Plus,
the only dough in here is Play-Doh, so why the smash and grab? I'm Natalie Collada with a mystery break-in at a childcare space. That story coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
I will put you in the driver's seat at Le Mans. You just shut your mouth and let me do my thing.
It was like the Army. You followed orders. You did the right thing. You got rewarded.
Are you having any negative thoughts?
All I have are negative thoughts. Your orders are to deliver a message, calling off tomorrow morning's attack.
Just a sampling of the films nominated for Best Picture in the Academy Awards. 9 movies are vying for that statue. Yelena Adzik is here with all the details.
Yep.
So much to talk about. Yelena, I don't even know where to start.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. You know, these movies, no matter how you feel about the nominations, if you're excited or if you're like, meh, the point is that the ones that lead are really the ones that we talk about. These kind of shape our conversation. So I think we should start with Joker because it is in the absolute lead with 11 nominations. I don't think people suspected that it would get that many. So when it comes to tone, it really looks like this year's crop is really interested in brooding. It's dark, it's somber, and it is a bit controversial for the violence. So again, it's in the lead with 11 nominations. Now the next 3 films I'm going to talk about have 10 each, including Best Pick, Best Director. 1917, you already saw a little bit of that off the top of our conversation, Dwight. But then also to show you Irishman. The Irishman, of course, by Scorsese. It's this mob drama. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci. You know this, Dwight. It's 3.5 hours long. It's actually as long as the entire Oscar ceremony.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah, so you know it. And then Sam Mendes, I mentioned earlier, so that's Martin Scorsese, and then Quentin Tarantino, the last one on the list to get 10 nominations with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this is a dark reinvention of a serial killer story. So do you get where I'm going with this? We're talking about serial killers, war, mob dramas, a lot of machismo happening here, Dwight. And you know, not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you look at a movie, another one to mention is maybe a little more interesting, Parasite, because this has 6 nominations. Now, it's up for Best Foreign Film. It's a South Korean movie. And it's also up for Best Pick and Best Director for Bong Joon-ho. So I don't think a lot of people were expecting it would get as many as it got. And again, it's intense. It's a dark comedy about a con man, and it is really strong. But again, these are stories mostly centered around men. So I think for a lot of people, their eyes were perked up when they were listening to the list of Best Director, and there wasn't a single female mentioned.
No Hustler, no Little Women.
Yes, No Little Women with Greta Gerwig, or A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Marielle Heller. Okay, so let's take a look at Issa Rae because she gave the announcement today and then ends with this pretty terse point. Have a look.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino. And Parasite, Bong Joon-ho.
Nice.
I did it. I did it. Thank you so much.
You did it.
Congratulations to those men.
Congratulations to those men.
We love
Now,
her, Issa.
at least you can really marvel at the talent and the Best Actress category. Believe it or not, women got in this one.
Really?
I'm just being so sarcastic. But look at these stories, Dwight. We're talking about women fighting for civil rights, for equality, and, you know, personal stories of pain and triumph. So they are different kinds of stories. They're all good. It's all good to get them in there. But it is really interesting to note.
Really interesting, because you make the complaint when there's nothing there, but this year...
Well, that's it.
There are films there, people.
There's breadth, there's width there,
All right.
yeah.
Let's talk about Canadian content.
Yeah.
Good news there?
Okay, there are a lot of different connections. There's some Canadian connections to 1917 and that sort of thing, but I want to focus on one woman who happens to be a female director from Canada.
All right.
And she's got a movie called Brotherhood, and she is this film is up for Best Short Film Oscar. Her name is Mariam Jobert, and we had a chance to talk with her earlier today, Dwight, and what I love about this is that she had her family around for the announcement, and it was really a feel-good moment. Have a listen.
We had gathered as the team and my family had gathered to watch the live stream together. So it was really nice to have everyone I love together, and we just went wild when the news came out. We just started screaming and just had a great moment.
She might have another big moment when the Oscars actually happen. The ceremony is on February 9th, so we'll find out who wins.
Thanks, Yelena.
You got it, Dwight.
I'm Shannon Martin, live in Richmond Hill. Tonight there's a vigil for 6 young people from York Region who lost their lives. Coming up, we'll hear their stories after the plane crash last week.
New video was released today by Ukraine. It shows the country's experts working with the wreckage at the plane's crash site in Tehran. But as Chris Brown explains, the investigators have a long and difficult road ahead as they try to piece together what led to last week's tragic incident.
Well, we're getting a new look at the crash site and some of the work that's been going on there by the investigators who are trying to understand exactly the sequence of events that led to this crash. This video is provided by Ukraine's emergency services outfit. It shows Ukrainian investigators talking to eyewitnesses. We see parts of the plane that we haven't seen before with the Ukrainian airline colors on it. And we also see other parts of the plane being put onto a flatbed truck and taken away. We understand that there's a hangar where the plane is being reassembled to help with this investigation. A number of these Ukrainian experts who are on the ground there have done this kind of very sad work before. They were involved 6 years ago when Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 was shot out of the sky. So these people know what to look for when it comes to missiles taking out passenger aircraft. Over the weekend, we had a chance to talk to Alexei Danilov. He is the man coordinating this investigation for the president of Ukraine at the president's office. And he told us about the immensely difficult job that still lays ahead in terms of identifying 176 victims. Iran has 50 experts on DNA, he said. All of them are now working in Tehran after being gathered from around the country. And until the final analysis is complete, he added, countries won't be able to take the bodies of their citizens home. He said roughly 30% of the bodies have been identified so far. Also today, Ukraine's government announced that the actual head of the investigation in Iran is going to be paying a visit here to Kyiv in the next few days. We don't know exactly what the topic of that's going to be, but it is a significant meeting and no doubt to help assure people, not just in Ukraine, but in the broader international community, that Iran is trying to show transparency and that it wants international help in this investigation. Chris Brown, CBC News, Kyiv.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked today if those people killed on the Ukrainian airliner are collateral damage in the ongoing tensions between Iran and the U.S.
I think if there were no tensions, if there was no escalation recently in the region, those Canadians would be right now home with their families. This is something that happens when you have conflict and war. Innocents bear the brunt of it, and it is a reminder why all of us need to work so hard on de-escalation, on moving forward to reduce tensions and find a pathway that doesn't involve further conflict and killing.
Trudeau also told Global News that he did not get a heads up about the airstrike that killed the Iranian general and would have preferred a warning. The killing of Qasem Soleimani prompted a retaliatory attack by Iran on a U.S. base in Iraq just 4 hours before the Ukrainian airliner was shot down by Iranian forces. Everyone on board, most of them heading to Canada, were killed. 6 students from both the York Region and York Catholic school boards were among the victims of the crash, and tonight hundreds are expected at a vigil to remember them. Shannon Martin joins us live now from Richmond Hill. And Shannon, so many students lost in one region.
Yeah, and it's being deeply felt here, Dwight. The program is just about to begin, and you can tell how deeply felt it is just judging from the large crowd that is here. 6 young people, as you mentioned, from grade 1 through grade 12. These were children with their whole lives ahead of them. Here are some of their stories. A recital at the time perhaps like any other. Now a memory her father will cherish forever. 9-year-old Rira Esmailian, in a word, he says was amazing.
She was very talented in sport, she could speak 3 languages, and she was very proud of that. I had to force her to play piano every day. Rira, you have to play 30 minutes, no, dad, it's 25 minutes. Things like that, you know, it's very hard to recall all those memories, you know.
Asal Ovaisi died alongside both her parents. Asal in Farsi means honey. Family friends today say she was just as sweet. A wonderful treasure. That's how 10-year-old Rostin Mogadam is being remembered by his father. Shaheen lost his whole world, he says, his wife and son.
I wanted to know how amazing they were to me, how treasured they were, how amazing, wonderful son, intelligent, super smart, super. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Arad Zarai should have been starting his last semester at Richmond Green Secondary School. His father remembers him as energetic, caring, saying he was the apple of my eye. His laugh was infectious. Daniel Ganshi was in grade 3. He was visiting Iran with his mom and sister on vacation over the holiday break. Dorsa was Daniel's older sister, a talented graphic artist who loved music.
I lost all of my family, my son, my daughter, and my wife. I don't have anything now. I lost all of things in the world, and I don't know how can I continue my life.
And you are looking live now at the vigil at this hour in Richmond Hill. The musical performances have just started. We are expecting some speeches. One of the people that's going to be talking tonight, Dwight, is the MP for Richmond Hill, Majid Jawari. He is Iranian Canadian, and we asked him, what do these vigils mean to the community? Here's more from him.
Vigils like this are needed for many reasons. For us to extend our support, for us to say, as Canadians, we stand shoulder by shoulder, tell the families and those who have stayed with us that we care. We are there for them, and we share their sorrow, and we stand with them. Also, as a community, whether it's a small community like York Region, a broader community like Ontario and our nation, we need a path to dealing with this and accepting this.
And something else we asked him, Dwight, you know, right now the media coverage is so intense, there's a lot of attention on this, but in the coming weeks we know that will fade, so what can we do to continue to show that support? And he said the biggest thing is just being there and listening if someone needs to talk. Dwight.
Yes, that is important. Thank you, Shannon. Our team has put together a page where you can learn about each of the 57 Canadian victims. You can find that at cbcnews.ca. It is called The Workaround. It's supposed to be a solution for parents who need childcare and also a place to work. But now a bizarre break-in has delayed its opening. Ali Khalada spoke to the owners.
It seems like intentionally destructive and violent.
When Amanda Monday walked into her shared office's childcare space on Friday, she couldn't believe what she saw.
When we came around the corner, all we saw was brick falling. We thought the whole wall had come down. You know, we were shocked. I was crying. It's horrific.
Someone had punched out the front door lock, took apart part of the ceiling tile, then started hacking away at a nearby wall.
I feel violated. Yeah, I mean, our staff are upset. We all sat on the floor this morning, and the question that keeps coming up is, are they coming back?
It's the way the positioning of this business was, that they gained entries in the hopes of gaining entry into another business in that area.
In other words, police say the childcare space may not have been the intended target, but the business next door, a convenience store.
The way that the break and enter was committed was very thought out and absolutely destroyed the interior of the daycare. It's very sad, it's very unfortunate, and it's very brazen.
If it had been somebody random, the sharpness of the metal would have caused scratches. There'd be blood.
And there was no blood?
There's no blood. There's no blood, there's no fingerprints. There wasn't any sort of evidence that a human was harmed by doing this.
It's left Monday and her staff to pick up the pieces.
It's ripped out of the wall.
They're now waiting for an engineer report to see what needs to be done in order to open, though unlikely in time for what was supposed to be their grand opening next week. Natalie Khalada, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, meet the man that has everything from A to Z when it comes to Zellers.
This was a toy that I dug out of my son's room, hoping that he had kept it. Probably one of my most favorite slogans of Zellers was because the lowest price is the law.
memorabilia, promotions. He even found his wife there. We'll bring you his story next. The lowest price may be the law, but not for much longer. The final 2 Zellers locations in Canada will close later this month. We caught up with some former employees for some memories and memorabilia.
My name is Richard Hall. I worked for Zellers from 1978 right through to its close in 2013. And I'm privileged to be able to share some of my stories and a little bit of memorabilia that I kept throughout my years today. Our very first store in the company, Walter P. Zeller, in 1931, opened Store 1 in London, Ontario. So that's the root of our company. But this is the actual newspaper from, forgive me, May 8th, 1945, where Zellers has taken out an ad, all hail to the glorious day of victory from the Second World War. This is a toy that I dug out of my son's room, hoping that he had kept it. Probably one of my most favorite slogans of Zellers was because the lowest price is the law. And you know, it was a real keepsake. Toyland was huge for Zellers. It was one of our biggest marketing events of the year is when we launched Toyland for Christmas. The law of Toyland for the staff and the toy department to wear. It was always a lot of fun. Second biggest highlight of my career at Zellers. Gordie Howe was doing a book tour. I spent the next 3 days with Gordie, touring him around, taking him and his wife to all of the sports outlets for his PR tour. And the fun part of the story, we were done a little bit early, and Gordie said, well, didn't you just have a baby? And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. He says, well, let's go see him. So, can you imagine, unexpectedly, we walk in and there's Gordie Howe and his wife. And so this is one of my prized possessions for my oldest son, Colton, is a picture of Gordie holding my son. In the days prior to the internet, every Thursday the stores would receive a great big box of courier mail from home office. So I've got examples of promotions, movements from store to store. I've worked in 9 different locations. I was telling you about the #1 memory of Zellers, and I'd like you to introduce her to you. She's not only a great memory from the Zellers, but she's also my wife of 28 years. Former Towers employee that came over and joined us at Zellers. I was asked to take her under my wing when I was in the other store in Brampton, and so I took the instructions literally.
Fortunately for me, I ended up going through and Zellers picked me up, and it's fortunate because if I hadn't been picked up, this would never have happened. So we've been married, like Richard says, for 28 years, and it's been great. So I attribute that all to Zellers. Zellers was a family, not only a culture, but a family environment, and we all loved working there.
Like the 70s music to go with that piece. Now, the quack is coming back. You may remember this float on our waterways in 2017. Well, the world's largest rubber duck will be back in our harborfront in June. The 6-story, 13,000-kilogram duck will be there between June 19th and 21st for the Red Path Waterfront Festival. Mama Duck attracted more than 750,000 visitors during its first visit 3 years ago and helped generate more than $7.6 million for the local economy. And there were lots of folks who initially complained they did not want the big duck down at the harborfront, but turned out to be very popular with the tourists.
Yes, it did. So, yeah, that was a good payoff. I'm glad it's coming back, too. Looking forward to that. You know, in terms of our weather, you can look forward to the next couple of days being on the quieter side and temperatures being a little bit above seasonal. And when I say quieter, I don't mean there won't be any precipitation, but we're not looking at anything as drastic as what we had over the weekend. We've got a couple of days to relax, and then there's something coming towards next weekend. I want to show you, this is just illustrating the temperature trend across the country over the next few days as we head towards Friday. And look at these pinks, even getting towards the whites in terms of our legend. This is significantly cold air. It's back there. This is for tomorrow afternoon, so mild air poking into southwestern Ontario. Even here in Toronto, we'll see the temperature above seasonal, running about 5 degrees above seasonal. Wednesday still mild, but this air trying to dig in here, the colder air. We transition on Thursday with our temperatures coming back closer to seasonal, and look at Friday. These are the highs, not the lows. So Friday, some significantly colder air in place as this overtakes the Great Lakes. That's one ingredient. The other ingredient looks like we're going to have is some moisture, so put the two together, and we're talking about a snow event, potentially, for next weekend. In the meantime, I did say we could kind of take a breather here and take it easy. So it's 2 degrees, it's mild, a little patchy fog tonight. If you're in an area prone to fog, be a little cautious even tomorrow morning. Maybe allow a little extra time for that. Some cloud cover too, and then into the afternoon, we could see a little bit of light mixed precipitation, more like rain showers towards the lakeshore, but otherwise a light mix. That goes on by. Wednesday starts off quiet, and then into the afternoon and evening, we get a little dusting of snow coming through again, but that's not the system I'm talking about. This next one will be later on in the week. So overnight tonight, your readings looking like this. A few flurries are certainly possible, but just below freezing. Tomorrow, 3 to 5 degrees, maybe a little light precipitation in the afternoon. It's as we look towards Friday into Saturday. 10 centimeters plus, question mark. It's still several days out, but there are some models, Dwight, that want to give us a lot more than that for next weekend. So watching that one carefully.
I don't think my shoulder's going to be ready to shovel yet, though, Colette.
I was thinking about that with your slip, off the weekend. I was thinking, we always talk about you shoveling.
Thank you, Colette.
Yep.
A volcano in the Philippines that belched plumes of ash yesterday began to seep lava. Authorities in the area have declared a state of calamity and are warning a hazardous eruption could come within hours or days. The density of the ashfall has obliterated views of the volcano in the region about 70 kilometers south of Manila. Masks sold out as 8,000 people fled toward the capital. Pineapple groves, buildings, and roads, even birds have vanished under a thick blanket of ash. Yesterday, the electrical intensity of the ash cloud generated volcanic lightning, signaling more dangerous phase of the eruption. Police have mapped out an exclusion zone to keep people from entering that region. Coming up, getting a divorce? Well, there is now an app for that.
This product was available beforehand, I wouldn't have engaged in legal services as early as I did.
You don't know whether your matter is going to be $3,000 or $30,000.
Walking couples through the legal hoops of a breakup. That's coming up after the break. Some lawyers say they see a spike in divorces this time of year. Just after the holidays, it can be an emotional, messy process, especially if you have to go to court. A Toronto lawyer has come up with software that could make the process a bit easier. Lisa Shing has more.
It's a simple setup with straightforward questions, a program that walks the user through which forms they need to apply for a divorce.
You don't know whether your matter is going to be $3,000 or $30,000.
Toronto lawyer Catherine Hendricks says divorce can be expensive, especially since a retainer for a lawyer already costs a few $1,000s. It's also complicated.
Family law touches something like 39 different acts. It is about families, and it is about children, and it is about your house, and it is about your money.
That's why Hendricks developed online divorce forms inspired by the tax return program TurboTax. Her website helps people fill out forms they would otherwise need to get from court. Hendricks has piloted the program with a number of organizations and people, including Diana Campbell, who is currently going through a divorce.
If this product was available beforehand, I wouldn't have engaged in legal services as early as I did. So I think there's a lot of stuff I could have done on my own.
Family lawyers in Ontario say more and more people are representing themselves in divorce proceedings. This University of Toronto legal clinic that helps lower income people says the program would be helpful to their clients.
If you can reduce the complexity, clear away the clutter, make things easier for people in their lives, why not?
The federal government estimates 64 to 74% of family law litigants are self-represented. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
After a wet and wild weekend, here's hoping for some calmer weather this week. Colin's back after the break with a final look at your forecast. You know, it came out just as we were predicting. With all the rain came, but it was that freeze that you really wanted that got a lot of us on Sunday. But It's all in the past. Until you talk about snow.
Yeah.
This weekend, how am I going to shovel when I slipped and hurt my shoulder?
I know. I think your daughters will be helping you out, right?
Wishful thinking on my part. What do we have for the rest of the week?
That may be the way it's got to go. We have some kind of quieter days, right? In the meantime, there'll be a little bit of a dusting of snow here or there, but nothing all that significant. It's not till next weekend. We're talking about this next possible event. Now, in the short term, this is what we have for you tonight. I do want you to be mindful that we could have some reduced visibility due to some patchy fog. So that's one issue. A few flurries certainly possible. -2 is what we're looking at. Very mild for this time of year for our overnight low. 3 tomorrow afternoon. And yes, a little bit of a light mix. It would be more showers towards the lakeshore and maybe some wet flurries a little further north, but not much to it.
When we're this far above seasonal, I feel like we're going to pay for this eventually.
Well, how about Friday?
Yeah, maybe coming this Friday. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight after the National at 11. For news anytime, download the CBC News app. We will see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have a great night, everybody.